something besides simple profit. Maomao also looked to the western sky. Somewhere over the horizon lay Sheo and beyond it Hokyuaran. Chapter 16 Jyakuan's children. Maomao watched Jinchi smack his head into a post. It was practically comical to see him bash himself against a pillar in the sumptuous chamber, surrounded by attendants. Young master, at least use this, Suhin said, inserting a wadded-up cotton jacket between Jinchi's head and the pillar. The sound went from thump-thump to bomp-bomp, which only made it seem sillier. Suhin didn't go so far as to try to stop him. He played me, like a two-stringed fiddle, sir. You're mocking me. Yes, I am, sir. Maomao had her hands full trying to offer non-committal responses. Just agreeing with everything Jinchi said was better than letting herself slip and accidentally try to suggest an actual solution. It was the same way she dealt with huffy courtesans, it always calmed them down. Are you even listening to me? Jinchi demanded. I'm listening, sir. Apparently it was still the wrong choice. Instead of offering inoffensive comments, she should have tried to suggest a solution. But at that moment Maomao didn't even have any ideas to offer, neither did the rest of Jinchi's entourage. Gaeshan was the first to speak. Moon Prince, has there been any communication from Empress Jyokayu since then? When was then? Maomao wondered. She knew Jinchi and the Empress had been in touch with each other about Jyokuo's daughter. Was that what he meant? Communication? Yes. But I don't think she's in a good position to deal with Sir Jyokuo. For one thing, the Empress would have no way to know about this most recent event. Even if I contacted her as urgently as I could, I doubt it would be in time. But thankfully she's already put me in touch with certain other connections. That made sense. Even the members of a single family were hardly going to be in lockstep. Maomao wondered who these connections were. What about Master Jyakuan then? Basin asked. Jinchi paused for a second, then said, I can't be certain, but I doubt Sir Jyakuan had a hand in this. I have kept him informed of the situation here, but there are certain things that I think he prefers to leave to his son's judgment. He sends only the most unclear answers. I can only imagine that what he writes to Sir Jyokuo is quite different from what he writes to me. Do you suppose that his answers conflict with the report you are getting, Master Jinchi? Taomei asked. She seemed to be wondering if Jinchi's letters were reaching Jyakuan at all. At the moment, I don't think so. I would agree, came a voice from behind a curtain. Maomao was caught off guard for a moment, but then realized it was Gaeshan's other son, Baryu. Chu flitted over and nudged the drape. He has gotten used to us enough to speak her. She had no idea how many more times she might have to visit before she saw his face. Maybe he would open up to her if she wore a duck mask. Gaeshan picked up the thought. Master Jyakuan's policy was always to be on friendly terms with neighboring countries, and thus to keep them in check. He might make suggestions or negotiate sometimes, but he never made an open declaration of hostility. I think that means it is safe to assume Master Jyakuo did this on his personal initiative. At the same time, I can see why Master Jyakuan might hesitate to criticize his son's approach. Sir Jyakuan isn't a young man anymore. He can't be forever meddling in his son's affairs, Jinchi said. True enough. Exactly, sir. Moreover, there must be more than a few among the populace who are dissatisfied with the way Master Jyakuan has done things. Master Jyakuo's core group of supporters must include many disaffected former believers in Master Jyakuan. One suspects. Jinchi set the cotton jacket aside and sat down. After all, not all the neighbors around here are necessarily good people. Maomao recalled a marriage ceremony that had taken place in the western capital last year. The wife-to-be, aghast at the idea of being taken to Sheo by her husband, had tried to fake her own suicide in order to disappear. The entire family had been in on it, and solving the case hadn't made them any more eager to go through with the wedding. They said the foreigners brand their wives like livestock. There weren't that many idiots in the world who would deliberately let someone press a hot brand into their skin of their own volition. As far as Maomao knew, there was only one person to blame. He had done it to himself. She glowered at that idiot while she considered the present circumstances. The people were upset with the emperor's younger brother, and Jyakuo intervened. He somehow managed to blame everything on the foreigners. Now Jinchi was going to perform a ritual. From what she gathered, this ritual was less about expunging sickness and more about preparing for the coming war. At that moment Jinchi had managed to postpone the ritual but briefly. He was now trying to figure out what to do. I don't suppose Sir Jyakuan would come home, Jinchi mumbled, but they all knew it was impossible. Unfortunately, sir, I don't think that will happen, Gaeshan said. You can't rely on others to solve your problems, Taomei added. That accounted for both husband and wife. This conversation did not seem to be going anywhere fast. Maomao wasn't even sure why she was here. She had been summoned for the first time in several days. Before she had a chance to inspect Jinchi's burn, he was starting in on his trials and tribulations. Miss Chu Maomao thought grudgingly of the whimsical lady-in-waiting who had brought her here. Maomao decided to try to get them back on track, by force if necessary. I understand you're worried, sir, but the general thrust of the ritual has been determined, hasn't it? Yes, Jinchi said slowly. It's this. He showed her a piece of paper. It had 2 characters on it: land and pacification. The pacification of the land, it was Vice Minister Lu's idea. He said this would be an appropriate justification for a state ceremony. I've heard of this kind of ritual, but not often. You understand what it means for this to be a state ceremony, don't you? Yes, sir. It's usually a ritual His Majesty the Emperor performs to venerate the ancestors and spirits, isn't it? That's right. But when His Majesty is too busy to perform such a ceremony himself, I may perform it in his stead. In fact, one such performance had led to an attempt on his life. If Maomao had studied more diligently for the court lady's examination during her time as Jinchi's lady-in-waiting, she might have figured out his true identity sooner. Would you like to know the details of the ceremony? Jinchi asked. Maomao didn't mince words. No thank you, sir. Just tell me exactly what it means to pacify the land. Very well. Typically these ceremonies have to do with venerating the ancestors and the spirits, or sometimes the heavens and the earth. In this case, however, since we are far from the capital, the suggestion was that perhaps the ritual should be focused on placating the local guardian spirit. In short, we pray to the devastated land that it will yield forth a rich harvest. If I may be so bold, sir, it sort of sounds like you just made up a new ritual out of whole cloth. Maybe not whole cloth. They say such rituals are practiced on the islands to the east. Let me see if I'm understanding you. Your hands would be tied if, immediately after the emperor's younger brother had venerated the spirits, Master Jiaku-O were to make a declaration of war on another country. Suppose that instead, you didn't venerate the spirits generally, but only the very specific spirit of this area. What if the object of the ritual extended no farther than the borders of Aisei province? Is that what you're thinking? You show remarkably sharp insight for someone who claims not to understand politics, Jinchi said. It was a funny thing to be impressed by. It seems that you would be deliberately placing yourself outside the scope of your own ceremony. Yes, as would Vice Minister Lu, who originally came up with this idea. If we're lucky, very lucky, Sir Jiaku-O simply won't try anything. In concrete terms, Jinchi was worried that Jiaku-O would take the occasion of the ritual to make an open declaration of war on another nation. He hasn't done anything outwardly yet, has he? Maomao asked. No. He talked to myself and Sir Lakan about the possibility of war, but he hasn't made any public moves. He was only sounding us out. He judged that he couldn't act without our support. This was what made Jiaku-O a dangerous man. He wasn't going to go to war by himself. He sought to drag everyone else along with him. The people of the Western capital trusted Jiaku-O implicitly. The policy he was now contemplating was inspired by their views. It might indeed make them think he was a fine acting governor, but the world was not so simple. The people of the Western capital had their feelings. Their anger had to go somewhere. It had been pointed at the imperial younger brother. Now it was pointed at a foreign nation. It was a simple solution in the short term, but it was a bad decision in the longer view. I opposed Sir Jiaku-O's plans, so he's taken more forceful measures. Yes, disgusting measures. He ought to be good enough to declare the war himself and suffer the consequences himself, Tao Mei spat. Now that's enough, Gaeshun broke in. Basin might look like his father, but maybe he got his hot blood from his mother. And this when there are so many foreigners in Aisei province, Maomao thought, worried for the danger this might put them in. How many foreign people are currently in the Western capital? She asked. She had seen the state of the crowd. If that mob came across anyone with foreign blood, a violent attack seemed likely. Where would the foreigners be hiding? That has been taken care of by someone with a talent for such things. The strategist, Jinchi said. That old fart, Maomao shot back, scowling. As soon as the first wave of grasshoppers hit, he brought all the foreign merchant groups to a single place where they could be protected. He said it would be a pain to have them scattered everywhere. Do you think he really understands what is going on? The freak with the monocle did everything on instinct, so it could be hard to fathom his actions. Many of the merchants went back home by sea or continued overland to Kao province. Even so, about 100 of them remain in the Western capital. Is there anywhere they can hide? The people here are not monolithic. Some are xenophobic, yes, but others see foreign people as invaluable neighbors. There is an inn in town near the port that caters to foreigners. He rented the entire place out. That is a pretty good trick. Indeed, he knew just the person to ask. In fact, they should be joining us shortly. Ahem, if we are going to have a visitor, I would like to wrap up my work here and get back, Maomao said. The only person currently at the medical office was the quack doctor, who had managed to sleep through the last major commotion. Meanwhile, it wasn't just medicine they were out of. There weren't enough bandages either, so Maomao had been planning to tear up some unused sheets to make new ones. I'm afraid our honourable guest has already arrived, said Chu. Most unwelcome news. Jinchi smirked. You heard her. Wait in back if you would. Yes, sir, but where is in back? Maomao looked around the room. Here, Miss Maomao, this way. Chu urged her to a corner that was curtained off from the rest of the room. Behind it was a table and 2 chairs. The table was already set with tea snacks. The space was small but not cramped. It was so unfair that only my husband got a spot. Miss Chu made one for herself too. Wow, it's so cozy, Maomao said. Yes, indeed. If you need more snacks, they're on the top shelf. Would you like tea or juice? Tea, please, coming right up. Chu bustled through a curtain on the other side. Maomao. She heard Jinchi from the other side of the curtain. I think things are going to get tiring. I need a charge. His hand poked through the drapes. A charge? Maomao asked. She studied the shelf Chu had indicated. She took a mooncake wrapped in paper from a basket on the shelf and pressed it into Jinchi's hand. Huh, the mooncake dropped to the ground. The paper came off and sadly it touched the floor. Maomao moved to pick it up, but her right hand was caught by Jinchi's. She felt his fingers slide between hers as if to make sure she was there. The fact that they were both using their right hands made it oddly awkward. Jinchi's long fingers pressed into the back of Maomao's hand while his palm pressed against hers. She could feel his pulse. His nails were neatly trimmed, but she could feel the calluses on his palm. Ink stained the tips of his fingers and there was a sheen of sweat on his hand. Maomao's palm had started sweating as well. She was hoping to get away before it got too bad. Sir, what are you doing? She asked. I told you. Charging. Charging? Damn it, so he hadn't been talking about getting some extra sugar. She looked reproachfully at the mooncake on the floor. I wanted to do it before I had to start pushing myself too hard. Maybe just don't push yourself too hard. Maomao breathed slowly, trying to keep her heart rate down, trying to keep the flush out of her cheeks and hands. Even so, her heartbeat and the sweating got away from her, and she could feel her hand growing slick. Only the most incompetent of leaders would find that an option, I'm afraid. If you let someone else steal credit for everything you do, you don't look like much of a leader anyway. That doesn't bother me. Those who know will know, and that is enough. He squeezed her hand tighter. Then the quality of his voice changed. Our visitor is here. Please pardon my intrusion, Moon Prince, a man's voice said. Not at all. My apologies for summoning you when you are so busy, Jinchi replied easily, but his hand remained wrapped around Maomao's. Is he going to hold the whole conversation this way? Jinchi's back was to Maomao, but she could not even see that because of the curtain between them. All she knew was that his right hand was growing increasingly sweaty, betraying the emotions that he could not allow to show on his face. Who was this visitor he was entertaining? What expression was he levelling at them? Did they really not realize that Maomao was right there, just out of sight? She could not stand it anymore. She pinched the back of Jinchi's right hand with her left. This does not count as disrespect. It does not. Please be seated, Jinchi said. Was it her imagination, or had his voice gone up an octave? At last Maomao worked her hand free and his disappeared past the other side of the curtain. Maomao held up her hand and inspected it. There were faint red marks on the back. Charging, huh, she muttered. Who's charging? Maomao just about jumped out of her skin and was lucky not to cry out. Chu was standing there with a tea platter. It's nothing, Maomao said. Really? Look, you dropped your mooncake. She grabbed it off the floor, blew the dust off it and ate it. Then she said, you don't look very relaxed, Miss Maomao. It's your imagination, Miss Chu. She tried her best to seem calm as they whispered back and forth. Okay, we'll say it's my imagination. Maomao didn't answer immediately. She could never tell how much Chu actually knew. Instead, she sat in one of the chairs and sipped her tea quietly. She could see the visitor through the gap in the curtain. Isn't he going to notice us watching him? She asked. Not to worry. Lady Suhan is keeping an eye out to make sure he doesn't see us. And he won't hear us as long as we keep our voices down like this. If Suhan thought it wasn't a problem, then it was fine. The visitor looked to be in his mid-30s with tanned skin and red hair. It seemed more weathered by the sun and sea breeze than due to foreign blood. Jinchi and the man sat across from each other at a table. Maomao and Chu could see them both in profile. Who is he? Maomao asked. One of Master Jyakuan's sons, a sibling to Empress Jyakuo and Jyakuo then. But he doesn't look like either of them, Maomao observed. That's true, he has a different mother. Master Jyakuan has 11 wives and 13 children. Maomao was quiet for a moment. Many rich men had a mistress or two in addition to their official wife. Apparently the easygoing old governor was no exception. That man there is his third son. His name is, well, you probably wouldn't remember if I told you, so maybe we can just call him Jyakuo's little brother. Chu was very offhand for someone saying something so rude, but as it was the undeniable truth, Maomao didn't object. Instead she said, like Lahan's brother, you mean? That makes sense, I like it. Yes, exactly. Just be aware that unlike Lahan's brother, this man does have a real, actual name. Was she implying that Lahan's brother did? Jyakuo's little brother is in charge of the port. It's thanks to him that we were able to rent out the inn district. He was very receptive and seems to be on good terms with Empress Jyakuo, so he's the mysterious connection. But then Maomao stopped and tilted her head. If he has all that power, why wouldn't he speak up about what's going on in the western capital right now? And what about all the other siblings? There were apparently 13 of them, and Maomao only knew about 3. Weren't the children of powerful people supposed to squabble more? I think that has something to do with the way Master Jyakuan educated his kids. Jyakuo's little brother's mother was a sailor, and all the other mothers each work in a particular field. So basically the siblings all follow in their mother's footsteps, pretty much. Master Jyakuan has a talent for more than just collecting wives. He brings exceptional people in each field into his family, just like how he maneuvered his way right into the imperial bloodline. As a merchant, nothing Jyakuan did was wasted. He had sent Empress Jyakuo to the rear palace, armed with the twin weapons of her beauty and wit. All right, but let's be frank. Master Jyakuan's only actual successor is Master Jyakuo, right? I know he's the eldest son and all, but the other siblings really don't have any problem with that, Maomao asked. The bigger a household was and the more assets it had, the more likely family strife was to break out. 11 wives and 13 children seemed like a recipe for disaster in that department. Master Jyakuan's wives appear to have a hierarchy. There is a nice clear division between Master Jyakuo's mother, his official wife, and the rest, who are all concubines. I see. Jyakuan had only one true wife, Jyakuo's mother. The rest were merely mistresses he had taken to forge specific relationships. He's more ruthless than he looks. Jyakuan seemed like a pleasant, perhaps even doddering old man, but Maomao found her image of him completely changed. I understand what he is doing now, but I cannot help thinking his many wives, families might have something to say about it. By all appearances, he has handled that situation very well. Chu stuffed some mooncake into her mouth and peeked out through the curtain. Jyakuo's little brother was reporting on the situation of the foreigners staying at the inns. We are managing so far, somehow, he was saying. That is a great help, Jinchi replied. Even if one considers the current emergency an extenuating circumstance, an attack by the people here upon the foreign population could quickly spiral into a diplomatic incident. A diplomatic incident, the tanned man repeated with some sarcasm. Depending on how my older brother plays his cards, it may turn out there was no point to me hiding anyone. That was a very unsettling thing to hear. Jyakuo's little brother was built like a rough and ready sailor, but he seemed to know how to put on a polite tone in front of the emperor's younger brother. If you will forgive my saying so, Sir Jyakuo seems set on war. How has he behaved among you siblings? Jinchi asked. I couldn't say for certain, but I have an idea. Jyakuo's little brother clasped his gnarled hands. All of us called our eldest brother's mother Lady Sabo, the Western Mother. Perhaps you know that she was formerly a member of the Windreader tribe. Yes, I've heard. Perhaps the name was derived from that of the goddess Saobo, the Western Queen Mother. Or perhaps they called her that because she was the mother of the Western capital. Or maybe her name even included the character for West. Maomao didn't know. Lady Sabo was a kind woman, very concerned for those who had formerly been members of her tribe. She went with our father on his business expeditions, and any time she saw a former Windreader among the slaves, she would free them, or so I've been told. That would mean Sir Jyakuo went with her. Yes, sir. A great many members of the Windreader tribe were found in Sheo. Many of them had been viciously mistreated by the people there. They were practically skin and bones. My mother met many of them in their last moments. Maomao listened. This sort of made sense to her, but also sort of didn't. Chu seemed to be of the same opinion. She was frowning. What do you think, Miss Maomao? She asked. I'm not sure how to answer that. It would certainly be one reason to want to go to war, but it seems like it must be just one reason out of many. That was her honest opinion. She understood it as a justification, but on its own it was too little. Wanting revenge for one's people was understandable. However, tribes all over the plains had attacked the former Windreaders. Meanwhile, foreigners hardly had a monopoly on mistreating their slaves. As a political matter, such things were barely more than excuses. Jinchi, as it turned out, had much the same questions as Maomao and Chu. Is that the only reason? He asked bluntly. I realize Sir Jiaoku is your eldest sibling, but surely that doesn't silence the younger members of the family completely.